Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this live webinar that has been organised as part of the Humber Apprenticeship Showcase, which is, of course, powered by Spring Pods. Now, just to give you a quick little bit of housekeeping before we kick off, this talk should last around 45 minutes. That gives you a good idea in terms of your timings and things like that. We do also have a Q&A function, and we absolutely want to give you as much as we can in this session. So get all your questions in there. There's really no such thing as a silly question. However, in saying that, due to the large number of questions that we normally get in, if you do see a question in there that you perhaps now want to ask, or you were going to put in there anyway, instead of writing it again, all you've got to do is vote for the question. So if you vote for that question, you bring it to the top of my list. Just means if we are a little bit short on time, those are the ones that I'll get to first. Now, if you do have to miss the webinar for whatever reason, you need to leave halfway, don't worry, we are not easily offended, and it's really not a problem. You don't have to miss a thing, because it's all going to be recorded and it will be available within the next 24 hours. So you can always come back, watch back on demand, take any notes that you might want to do. Now, today's webinar, we're going to be talking about DFDS. And to join us, we have Emma Learn-Saville, who is the Route Agency and Border Compliance Director, and Andrew Bryn, who's the Managing Director as well. Now, I know Andrew's just been trying to get on because technology is technology here in 2022. So we'll do our very best, but I'll have a little chat to Emma. Hi, Emma. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I mean, I feel like a really good place to start would be if you're able to tell us, what is DFDS?
Okay, so DFDS is a Danish-owned shipping and logistics company. So we move cargo from Europe into the UK and vice versa. We are as far afield as Turkey. So yeah, if you ever wondered how your Lego gets into the shops, that's what we do. We bring you that bacon, all that sort of stuff. So
All the
that's
good
the simple version. Yeah.
all the good stuff for sure. Now, of course, today we're chatting all about apprentices, right? And
Yep.
it would be kind of good to know, what is the role of an apprentice at the company? I know from experience it's not making tea anymore, is it? That's not a thing.
No. An apprentice for DFDS, where apprentices, it's a good stepping stone for people to find out their feet in a career. And when an apprentice starts with DFDS, they start in a genuine role and learn the job from the beginning. As you say, we don't send them off. To make the tea and do all the filing. They do the real job. So we have apprenticeships from port operatives through to ships agents that look after bringing the vessels into the ports and things like that. So it's a wide array of roles for apprenticeships now.
Yeah, and kind of like when you're looking at those roles, what is it that you're expecting from an apprentice? Because I guess it is entry level and might not have as much, experience as maybe someone else.
I think when you're coming into a role on an apprenticeship level, and it is a starting out role a lot of the time, it's about you need to see people have got that interest, have got a bit of passion, they can communicate, and they're willing to learn. We can't expect experience behind that, and that's what apprenticeship's about. It's about gaining that experience for those roles onto the next level.
Yeah, and I know obviously we're kind of chatting about the benefits of maybe doing an apprenticeship for the individual, but what are the kind of benefits for you guys as a company? What do you guys get out of the apprentices?
I think it's very much a partnership. The apprentice themselves gets a trade, but also we get good colleagues. We get people moving into those roles that understand how we work and what we want from that side of the role. So it's not something that an apprentice comes in and then they're done and they go. They actually go into a full role.
Got you. And what are kind of some of those roles? I know we touched on them a little bit there, but what would the day of a life say look like a little bit?
Oh, so I can talk very well about one of our ship's agency's apprentice,
Okay.
and it's a young lady that works with us. And what she does is when our vessels come into the River Humber, when they come in, we have to arrange when they can get on the berth, when the labour is ready, and that's what they do. So they bit. So they will start off with somebody shadowing them, showing them exactly how to do that, who to talk to, when to talk to, and when to react. But most of these roles is very varied. You can't say that every day is going to be the same, because it's not. And that's what's interesting about the shipping and logistics industry. It's different all the time.
Yeah, I bet. And I bet you have to think a lot on your feet, no?
Yeah, you do, and that's when you're in the apprentice roles, you've got some good guidance with you, and those people around that are helping you develop in that role will guide you, but also allow you to make those decisions as well with guidance. So we don't sort of say you need to do this. We will say, what do you think we need to do? Once you get sort of into the role, what do you think you need to do?
Yeah, and it becomes, I guess, a little bit collaborative then, doesn't it? Rather
Yeah,
than, yeah,
very much so.
that's exciting though. It's quite exciting to kind of learn in that way, with the kind of security of knowing that it can't go really that wrong, but that you do have a say.
Yeah,
And you can kind of work through it all as well. Now,
absolutely.
of course, what are the actual benefits that go alongside being an apprentice, would you say, from your experience?
Um, I think the big benefit is you're gaining a trade. And
Yeah.
when we talk about a trade, we're not necessarily talking about somebody that's going into carpentry. A trade can be anything. So for me,
Mhm.
I'm a border compliance director. That's still a trade.
Mhm.
So you're actually getting that experience, and you're building your knowledge for the future. And also, I think it can give you that you kn- learning of, actually, this is something I really want to do, and of course, while earning a wage at the same time.
Well, that's it, isn't it? Because you could kind of maybe go into a college course or
Yeah,
perhaps university.
and, and they all link together. And so when the apprenticeship doesn't mean to say you can't do a college course as well. They go hand in hand, and there will be courses that you need to do at the same time. But even after that, there's always education to follow up if you want to.
Yeah. And so kind of when you say that, how does it work? Do they maybe go to college for like one day, or is it evening study and then working day?
It's sometimes they go to college for a day, or they also have a link, and some is if it's done online, and then they have coordinators that come in and see them in the roles as well. So they're guided in both from the work placement, but also from the apprenticeship side through through that organisation as well.
Right, got you, got you. So you've kind of got the hands-on experience plus
Yeah,
the kind of
yeah,
theory, should I say,
yes,
that goes
yeah,
along with
yeah.
it.
Yeah, because there will be some courses that go alongside it that will require some time from the individuals. But again, that's side by the role itself.
Got you. Got you. Absolutely. And when you kind of finish your apprenticeship, does that mean you come out with like any qualification or anything to kind of say?
Yeah, depending on the role will depend on what qualification you're going through. There'll be MVQs, things like that. But also at the end of that apprenticeship, as we've said, it's not a case of you've done your apprenticeship, there's your certificate, see you, goodbye.
Okay.
From when we take an apprentice in, the aim for us is also to have them with us after they complete that apprenticeship. And I
Got
think majority of companies are like that. It's in our interest to build these people's futures with the company that they start with. So it really is everybody working together for that ultimate next step for them.
Yeah, that's quite nice to know as well, isn't it? As an apprentice, because that can
Mhm.
sometimes be a pressure. If you're kind of in an apprenticeship, you're like, I love it here, but there isn't any kind of like next step, I suppose.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
kind of, what would be the next step? Is it likely to then just be a job, or do you have to then go into like a graduate scheme? How does that work?
There are several options.
Mm.
So depending, and it depends on the individual, what direction they want, and it also depends what's available.
Yeah.
In a company like DFDS, there are so many different roles. We have things from accounts people through to lawyers,
Oh,
forklift drivers, all those sort of things. So once you've completed your apprenticeship,
mm.
th- whatever comes up within DFDS, you are then able to put an interest in forward for that. But equally, the role that you start with, there is the next step into that and moving through on the next level of those steps. And if we use the example of the ship's agency apprentice that obviously is working with us now, she hopefully she'll continue to enjoy it, and then she'll move to a fully qualified shipped agent, and then there's obviously management from there. So there's all sorts of different paths, but there are different departments that they might sort of, oh, I like the look of that, and they can go and apply for those roles as well.
Amazing. I got you. So you can kind of either kind of keep going perhaps where you've kind of started if you're loving it, but you can also do little side steps as well.
Yeah.
And there's
And in a big company like DFDS, there's lots of different avenues to explore as well.
yeah, I bet. I mean, how big is the company?
So I can't tell you exactly how many offices we are,
Oh wow,
because we go from all across Europe, and into Turkey, but we have over 10,000 employees.
amazing.
So quite a large
Yeah.
company.
Yeah,
Um,
very large. And kind of on that, is there an opportunity to kind of go to maybe different countries and
yes,
work there? And
absolutely. You are not necessarily confined to the one office. So the apprenticeship, obviously, that's where you'll start, and then you'll move forward, and you are able to apply for those roles in different countries. Part of the roles that you do will also see you travel to different offices and travel to the different ports to experience things from that side as well.
wow, wow, that is mad, isn't it? It's such a massive opportunity, that you don't always get, at different companies, so to speak. When you're kind of looking, obviously, there's such a wide area and a vast amount of apprenticeships, depending on where you are in the company. But kind of when you're looking at an apprentice, who's the kind of person you think, okay, they're suitable for an apprentice?
Oh, that's a really good question, because it has to be the right person for the role.
Mhm.
And as we've said, they need to be show an interest, be able to communicate with us. There are basics across the board that, punctuality, timekeeping,
Yes.
um, being able to communicate, show an interest, learn, listen, and talk as well.
Mhm.
And that sounds a little bit daunting sometimes when it's your first role and you're in this room with people that have been in that role for a while and experienced, but it's really important to engage. Um, so, and I think because there are so many different roles, and a lot of the time they are entry levels, we're not expecting miracles. We just want people that come with an interest, are keen, uh, and communicate well.
Yeah, and that's quite nice actually because it's something that we can all kind of work on and kind of be,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
It's not necessarily that you've got to come in with certain qualities already there, which
No,
is great.
yeah. You don't need to know how to maneuver a ship, for example. It's
That's handy.
yeah.
That's definitely handy. Is there any experience that is kind of expected at all? Is there anything that they need to have kind of done, or anything that you would say?
Um, it- Again, this depends on the role that they're looking for, and where they're going. So it's not an easy question to answer because different roles require different things.
Of course.
Um, but definitely, if you're looking at a particular role,
Mm.
do your homework about it. Look at what does it entail. Um, Sometimes you look at something, oh, that's a little bit interesting, but find out about it,
Yeah.
because you can't go into sort of an interview and sort of, what do you like about the job? Or, well, I don't know. So you
Yeah.
just do a little bit of homework about it.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. Ask questions. And we've all got the internet now, and Google's a fantastic thing to find a lot of these things out, isn't it?
It's so true. It's amazing what you can learn from a little
Yeah.
Google nowadays. It's really great, and that's good advice as well. I think in general, like
Yeah.
knowing what you're kind of walking into is half the
Yeah.
battle, right?
It is, yeah. It's important because from a prospective employer, we want somebody that's interested in the role that they're going for,
Mhm.
um, and somebody that's going to communicate with us. So if you're going into an interview for that, it's really important. You say, "Oh yeah, well, this part of it interests me, or and even if you sit there and say, well, I'm not quite sure what this part means, but the rest of it's interesting, and be open to that dialogue.
Yeah, and kind of how do you find those things out? Do you guys have like an actual like a process or that you go through when you kind of apply?
So yeah, so obviously, DFTS has got a lot on the website, but when we put out roles for the apprenticeship, there are details in there of what the job entails, and what's required. So yeah, but if there's anything in that, you know, description that's not quite sure, it's quite okay to sort of contact our HR team or somebody and sort of say, I've seen this advert. Can you explain a little bit more?
Mhm. Yeah,
You know,
that's
it,
really
it, it it's all about asking the right questions, isn't it?
yeah. Well, that's it, and I think it's the having the confidence to know that that's
Mm.
okay. Uh,
Yeah,
and
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, and that's why kind of like having these chats today, hopefully, kind of open those that are watching's minds a little bit and just see that
Yeah.
it's just people you're communicating with
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
It's not quite as daunting. I
No,
mean,
but I can see that it can be, it's a little bit, you walk into a room, it's like, strange people, and it's a new step, isn't it?
oh, absolutely. And I think as well for a lot of the audience watching, they'll be kind of just coming out of education, and it genuinely is a whole new world
Yeah.
for them.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think it's even a little bit more daunting after the last few years with the pandemic. We've not had so much of that contact. There's not um, so much interaction that we've had. So it's quite. I think that step's a little bit harder now.
yeah, I totally agree. And how does that look at then with you guys? Are you doing part from home, part from the office? How does that look?
Well, for the last 2 years, we've been very much doing that, but now we're mainly in the office. But I think the whole pandemic has given a little bit more flexibility, particularly for sort of people that have issues with childcare on the odd occasion, and things like that. It's not so, and I think it's shown that we can do things differently.
Yeah,
But fundamentally, the workplace is the office. You get your camaraderie, and particularly for an apprentice in a new role, you need that sort of connection, and you need to learn. And it's far easier. You can do it over Teams, and you can do it, but it takes that little bit longer, and just that little bit more difficult.
yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I actually think that when you're kind of at the beginning of your career, especially kind of making those connections, while you're making a cup of tea is kind of what's important, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it is a quick coffee while you're making a cup of tea, speaking to somebody that's in a completely different area than you, but you get those relationships, you get to talk, and you get to learn far more about the business than just in your little pocket.
Yeah, of course. Now, I think we've obviously spoke about apprentices kind of in general, but it'd be great to kind of chat about what it is that you do, because those watching might be thinking, "Oh, I quite like the idea of
Oh,
your
what do I?
department." Oh, well,
Okay, so what? I mean, I've been with DFTS quite a long time now,
yeah,
so 25 years. I celebrated 25 years last year. And I've done a few things. I started off doing in the booking department, so that was for people that wanted to use our ferries
yeah,
and ships, and they ring us and book, and then we'd move their cargo.
right, okay,
Um, and we built that. But what I do now, I've particularly in the last few years, I've been responsible for everything related to Brexit and the end of the EU exit. So my role in I talk to government quite a lot in those areas to sort of make sure that we have the processes right, because there's lot of new legislation about bringing cargo in.
yeah, I bet.
Um, so that's the quick version. But I have different teams. So one of my teams is the ships agency team, that we call it, where they look after the vessel's interests and also where they berth. Then also one of my teams is the claims department. So if there's an issue where there's some damage on a unit, the claims team take part of that. And then there's the border compliance side of things as well.
So you're kind of overseeing.
Yeah,
overseeing all the different teams. Got you. And
yeah.
kind of when you're faced with something like Brexit,
Mhm.
how do you even begin? Yeah.
I think you just have to sort of open your mind to what's going on, and then look at processes. And again, there's a lot of collaboration, a lot of conversation with government to make sure that, our voice is heard as well,
Yeah.
because it's important that we sort of say, we appreciate there's new legislation, but it's got to work. You're going to,
Mhm.
we need to keep cargo moving. So there's a lot of talking, a lot of talking.
I love that. And those watching will be like, oh, maybe that is quite interesting. Maybe I would like to get a bit involved in that department as well. But I guess, like you say, you've got kind of roles that are a little bit more kind of theory based, a little bit more
Yeah,
office based, talking, things
yeah.
like that. Have you got any kind of hands on kind of apprenticeships?
Yeah, so we have port operative apprenticeships, which are those that work out on the terminal, so that maybe do some things with forklifting, but ultimately the ones that take the big trailers off the vessels.
Hmm.
So learn to drive the big machineries, and they come sort of and they're really really good roles to have.
Yeah.
And we are trying to push those. And they'll also do what's called, we call it rigging. It's where they tie the cargo down on the vessel and things like that.
Got you.
Car driving, you start off
Oh,
car driving, so we bring cars in and you bring cars off the ship. So, but there's also, we have a workshop, so mechanics, things like that.
mhm.
There's all sorts of different roles.
Wow, you
We have
kind
a
of got it.
maintenance team.
Wow. You've got kind of hands on, all the kind of practical,
Yep,
and then the office based as
yep.
well. Amazing. Well, I believe we haven't unfortunately had Andrew join us because
That's
technology
it.
is technology. But Emma, I would just kind of love to kind of wrap up and just ask you what it is that you love so much about the company that you're working for.
Oh, I think um, I think there's a couple of things. I think for me, you have to enjoy what you do for the majority of the time on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Um, we all go through bits that we don't like all the time, but I think you need to enjoy what you do the majority of the time. But also, DFGS have been very supportive. It's been a good place to work, and the people around us as well. If you don't have good teams, you know it makes everything worthwhile when you've got a good team around you. So
Yeah.
I think there's a few things: liking what you do, the
Mhm.
company support, and also that your colleagues.
Yeah.
People are the most valuable asset we have.
Absolutely. And I think as well, you don't even realize kind of when you're starting out your journey, you spend most of your time at work, right? So
Yes.
those are the people
Yeah.
that you're mostly around. So it's
Yeah.
really important that you have
Yeah.
that good kind of team
And,
spirit.
and, and I would say to anybody that's looking to do something you enjoy, at least for the most part, you know. I'm not going to sit here and say that every single day I love what I do, because there's always a little bit that's just like, no, not today. Um, but for the most part, and as I say, I wouldn't be here over 25 years later if I didn't enjoy
Yeah.
it.
Well, that's it, isn't it? And I think that when you're kind of looking at your kind of career as a whole, it's kind of keeping that open mind, isn't it? And knowing that you've
Yeah,
got to do it every day.
yeah.
And enjoying it is such a big part of that. One last question I like to ask all my guests is, what's that one piece of advice that you would have given your younger self?
Be brave.
Oh, I like it. That's a good one, Emma. That's a good one. 2 words: be
It's
brave.
okay to fail.
Yeah. Oh, you've got all the gems. I like it. This is good. Great. But yeah, I think that is definitely something that you guys can take forward because I think in life and in work as well, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Emma. And after having
Yeah.
chatted to you about your job, we know how precious your time is and how much that you have to do. So thank you so much for joining us today. And those of you watching, I hope you've got a great understanding of what apprenticeships are like, and more specifically are like, of course, with DFDS. So thank you so much for joining us. That is a
Oh,
wrap
you're
for
welcome.
this session, and we'll see you all soon. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Bye bye.
Emma.